Jake here for Extreme Terrain, and in this video we're taking a look at the Mishimoto V2 Performance Aluminum Radiator fitting all 2007 to 2018 JK Wranglers. Upgrading your radiator is one of the best things you can do to your JK. Whether you're daily driving or wheeling your rig, it's a great way to make sure that your engine maintains optimal temperature and thus performance. Mishimoto's offering here is the latest generation that features significantly more cooling capacity and high quality construction for a package that is sure to please any JK owner. Now, nobody come at me, but let's be honest, cooling systems are not usually the strong point of any Jeep, and the JK is not immune to that. But thankfully, there are ways to address that issue, starting with the radiator. And nobody does cooling quite like Mishimoto. They're a perennial favorite around here for good reason. They put a lot of research and development into their products, and it's apparent the moment you open the box. Now, this is the V2 Performance Radiator, the second generation of Mishimoto's offering for the JK Wrangler. And there's some pretty significant updates here that make this a worthwhile upgrade, especially versus your stock plastic radiator. Now, inside this features 18% greater core volume, fin area, and external tube area, plus a 13% increase in coolant capacity. So in addition to having more surface area to be able to cool off your vehicle, this also allows you to have a larger coolant capacity. So you can put a little bit more in there and thus keep temperatures down a little bit further. So this was designed with off-roading in mind, hence that greater capacity. Now, this radiator, as we were talking about a moment ago, has some pretty big surface area. This one has over 9,000 square inches of fin surface area, which is a huge increase over stock, especially which comes in at well under 8,000 square inches. Beyond that, you also get a magnetic drain plug down here, and that's going to help catch any errant debris that might find its way into the radiator, helping combat the issue of clogging. And up top, you get a brand new 19 PSI cap that matches here, and that's going to help keep the system pressurized properly. But the real magic is what happens inside, and for that, we need to talk about how this thing is made. Now, as the name would imply, construction here is all aluminum. All of the joints and welds on the outside are TIG welded for extra strength. You can see the quality of the welds the moment you pull it out of the box. Now, there are extruded tubes as well, and each of them has internal struts for added strength. So these parts here are not going to be susceptible to cracking like a stock plastic unit would. Now, inside you've got a 100% brazed aluminum core as well. Again, that's going to help with heat dissipation and overall cooling. So suffice it to say, this is a very solid radiator. It's going to help keep temperatures down, and it's going to do a lot better at cooling your engine than your stock one would. Now, of course, all of that extra cooling capacity and quality is going to come at a price. This one in particular is going to run you about $750, and that does put it toward the top end of the category. This is a premium option, and thus it's going to command a premium price, so it is to be expected here. However, I look at this as a long-term investment into your Jeep as well. So even though the price might be a little high, the quality and longevity in my eyes are well worth the cost of entry. And especially if you plan on keeping your Jeep for a long time, doing this once as opposed to replacing the plastic radiator a number of times throughout your ownership is probably going to end up working out in the wash. And it's going to be worth the investment making it now versus having to do the downtime and buy multiple stock radiators over time. So again, if you're going to keep it for a while, this is a great worthwhile investment in my eyes. Again, definitely worth the cost of entry. Installation is going to get a 2 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and it should take you about 2 hours to complete the job. This is a totally bolt-in replacement for your stock radiator, and it's not going to require you to make any other modifications to the vehicle. So it makes it a pretty straightforward process. Mishimoto also includes new hardware in it, so you can put your radiator fan on there without an issue. Now, this is also a good time to think about replacing some other key cooling system components like your radiator hoses, your thermostat, and maybe even the water pump as well. We do have plenty of options for those on the site too, so while you're looking, might as well grab a few of those. Also, don't forget new coolant. But enough of me going on and on about it though. With that, let's go ahead and hand it over to one of our XT customers who's going to walk you through the process to install this radiator in your JK.
First thing, safety glasses. 8mm box end wrench. 10mm box end ratchet wrench, and then I used my channel locks, couple pair of channel locks, a ratchet, a trim removal tool, a couple different trim removal tools. I did use a little pry bar just whenever I was trying to line up the screws to get the radiator in place and bolted in. That came in handy a couple times, and then a couple pair of pliers and Let's see, I used a 10 millimeter deep socket, 8 millimeter deep socket, and a wobble. And I think that's all that I used on it today. So not too difficult. And a couple impacts. I used them some, but if you don't have an impact, what I did is not too hard to do if you just have a ratchet. Today we'll be putting a Mishimoto performance radiator in my 2018 Jeep Wrangler JKU. First things we're going to do here is we're going to remove the top engine cover. It just lifts up and pops off with these rubber grommets here to connect on the connection points on the engine and move this out of the way. The next thing I'm going to be doing is removing the air box and the air tube on it. And so I'm going to be loosening this with a 12 millimeter screw. Now this is an aftermarket air cleaner on it. So one of the things that the removal of the factory one is basically the same as the aftermarket. You'll have I think it's an 8 millimeter screw that you unloosen here, and then you'll loosen these two 10 millimeter screws right here. And then there's another 8 millimeter over here that you'll loosen, and then you'll remove the air tube. Removing these two 10 millimeter bolts that hold the air cleaner in place. And I'm going to loosen this clamp here, this 12 millimeter on it. And on the bottom of this air cleaner here, there is a oxygen sensor that you'll have to remove, and we're going to go ahead and pull the air box with this at this time. So the air box, you just grab hold of it and you'll lift up. It's held in place by 3 rubber grommets that go on here. The rubber grommets are right down here that are in place. Set that out of the way, and then we're going to get up here and we're going to remove the this air box, but there's a sensor right here that's an oxygen air temperature sensor that we're going to remove right here. And pop that loose and move that out of the way, and this is ready to lift out of the way, with the exception of this one hose that runs back to the valve cover on the Jeep. We'll remove this hose, and that hose is the same if you have a factory air cleaner on your Jeep. So now that we've taken off the air box and the air tube on it going to the engine, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this cowling right here on the top of the radiator, this cover, and it's got 4 Christmas tree attachments here, and here that we're going to remove, and we're going to use a molding removal tool to pop underneath here, and we're going to pop this up. Pop up, move that aside. We're going to pop all of these loose. And then once we have those loose, we're going to move this hood holder up, and we're going to wiggle this out carefully, pull that out, and we're going to set this to the side. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the grill and get the grill out of the way, because there's bolts that hold the transmission cooler and the condenser that bolt to the radiator, and they're on the front side of the radiator here on the front of the vehicle. And so to remove these, this is pretty simple. If you follow these instructions, take a little flathead screwdriver, pop this little trim piece loose right here, and then you'll take a trim removal tool. It'll make it a little easier once you pop that up. And you'll take the trim removal tool, pop that out. We'll go to the next one. There's 6 of these in total. Pop that up. Pop that out. sometimes these little clips with the screwdriver, they need a little coercing, so you have to get the other tool and get in on them and pop them loose. But then once you get that loose, then you should be able to get under this, pop that out. Sometimes they'll come apart like this. If they do, or they come apart into two pieces like this, just put it back in like that, and then they'll be ready to go back in whenever you're ready to put it back into the vehicle. Got just a couple more here. And the last one right here on this corner. And it's out. So all 6 of those are out now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of start over here at this side here, and this just the rest of it just clips in, and we're going to pop these loose, kind of work our way around. Just kind of reach in here and pop them loose. Now the winch here is a bit of a problem, but we'll make do here. We had to move that winch control box out of the way, and then you've got 2 clips for the parking lights here that you can take loose, but really it's easier just to turn the light, and all you do is rotate the light here like this. Rotate this light and just pull the bulb loose. Set the bulb down, and do the same on the other side, and then we just lift this up and set the grill out of the way. Okay, the next thing that I've done here, and I went ahead and did this off camera, but on the radiator, there's a drain cock that's right here, and there's wires right below the drain cock. So what I've done is I've taken a piece of pipe, and I've secured this piece of pipe in place with some zip ties so it doesn't move, and I put it over the little nipple on the drain cock on the radiator, so that whenever I open up the drain cock on it, the water drains straight down. It doesn't fall on the pipes and go everywhere on it and make a big mess. And then I'm going to use a 5-gallon bucket to capture the radiator, the antifreeze as it comes out. Today, I'm going to be saving the antifreeze. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take and open up the drain cock on the radiator to drain the antifreeze out. So we're going to rotate that, and I'm going to see if I can reach in here by hand and rotate it the rest of the way. We're going to turn the drain cock right here. I want to turn it counterclockwise until it opens up and antifreeze starts to run out. Okay, so it is open now. Be careful not to turn this too much, because if this plug comes out, it's kind of hard to get back in, even though I'm replacing the radiator if you weren't. Now that we've got that opened up, the next thing we're going to do is take the radiator cap off. So we're going to rotate that to the loosen direction. It's got tight directions on top, tighten and loosen. You're going to kind of push down on it and rotate it again, and the radiator cap comes off. And now I have antifreeze running into the bucket down here. Okay, I'm going to remove the overflow canister. I could have done this earlier, but I didn't. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. It's got a Christmas tree attachment right here on this. And so I'm going to pull this out, and this keeps your overflow canister from bouncing around if you're on the trail or anything. Keeps it from bouncing around and falling out. And this one here can be pretty stubborn to come out. So give me a second here to work on that. It's a tough one here. And this one actually has a push pin that goes in the top of it first, and then you catch underneath the bottom and it pops right out. So I'll show you in just a second what we have here. Okay, so on this one, it actually is a 2-piece, kind of like the ones that held the grill in. So you pop the center cap out of it like this, so it pops out like that. And then once you get that pulled out like that, then you can hook your tool underneath the bottom side of it and it comes right out. Okay, so with that done, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to unhook the line right here, go into the coolant overflow, and it just lifts up and comes out of the fan shroud just like so. Kind of a little trick getting it out of the bottom one, but there we go. Once it's clear, we're going to lift it out and we're going to set it somewhere where we can set it up right, and then where we don't spill the coolant out, because this is all new coolant in this vehicle. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the cooling fan from this. You can do this either way. You can remove the cooling fan before you remove the radiator, or you can remove it after you remove the radiator. I prefer to do it before I remove it because then it makes it a little easier when you're working on getting the radiator out of the spot. So to unhook the electrical, you push this little tab right here, right there, push it in, slide this back out of the way, and it's ready to go. One other item that we have here that we're going to go ahead and address while we're here is there's a Christmas tree wire connector right here that we're going to take and pop loose. We'll have to get this now. This goes into the radiator, so we'll have to get this out before we pull the radiator out. So that kind of work that out, and it should pop right on out, but it's been a little stubborn. There we go, we got it out. Okay, now on the fan is held in actually by two 8mm screws or bolts right here, and one right over here on this side. So we're going to take those two loose. Going to use a 1/4-inch drive ratchet and an 8mm socket, and we're going to take those two out. To me, getting the fan out of the way just kind of makes it a little easier to get to go ahead and get to the lower radiator hose and stuff. And there's some other clips and stuff that we're going to have to undo on the radiator here in a minute. So it just makes this a little easier to do if you get this out of the way right away. Okay, that screws out. Now we're just going to lift this up, and it catches in. It's got two little tabs down here that catch as you put this fan in. So when you go to return it back to this position, you just want to make sure that you get them held in at the bottom, and then you kind of lift it up and out of the way. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the upper radiator hose now that we've drained the coolant out. And we're going to move this back to here and let go of it using my channel lock pliers. And then we're going to kind of twist this a little bit and push it back. And it comes right off just like that. So now we're just going to move this back out of the way right there and kind of secure it right there behind that. Okay, I'm going to take my channel lock pliers and I'm going to remove the lower radiator hose here. Kind of the same process as the other one. You're going to kind of get a hold of it, squeeze it in, wiggle it. We're going to work it back to right here. Going to let go of it. Now, set those aside, and then I'm going to kind of get in here and we're going to wiggle this back, and a little coolant leakage out, but we're going to take and put that, move that back out of the way right there, and kind of wedge it in here just to get it out of the way. There we go. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is there's two 10mm bolts that bolt in right here and right here that hold the radiator on each side. I'm going to take those two bolts out on this, and that way a lot of people will do this and they will not remove these bolts until they take the condenser and the transmission cooler loose from the radiator. But loosening these two gives you a little bit of play with the radiator to move it around, and it makes it a little easier to get to some of the other bolts as we go through this process. So you can do this either way, but this is the way I prefer. And I'm going to get in here with my 10mm socket on here, and if you don't have an impact with the wobble, you can use a just a ratchet from the short socket here, just fine. Okay, that one is out. Moving to the other side. I'm going to remove the wobble on this one because it should be a straight shot in. And this one. There we go. It is out. So now the radiator is loose. We've got a little bit of play here. And then the next step is we've got two 10mm bolts here. We've got an 8mm that's down here that you can't see. And you've got an 8 here and an 8 here and another 8 down here that we have to get loose to get the condenser and the transmission cooler loose. One of the things I want to point out is this bolt right here between these two lines. Do not undo that one. If you undo that one, you're going to have a mess and you're going to have transmission fluid leaking everywhere. So with that, we'll get to that next. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is you've got two bolts on the side of the radiator on the driver's side. One of them is right down in this area right here below this line. It's an 8mm bolt. It's a hard place to get to. One of the things that I did on this is I loosened the horn, took the horn out of the way and set it out of the way so I can get my hands in there to get to it. And the other one is down on the side of the radiator, down under here, and it's right in there. If you can see where I'm pointing, right there is where the other one is. And you got to take that one loose. And they hold the transmission and air conditioning lines in place, and they're attached to the side of the radiator. Then the next thing that we're going to do is take these two 10mm here loose, here and here, and then there's an 8mm down here that if you've got a ratcheting box end wrench, that would come in very handy to do this. And then there's, you can see it right there in the video. Okay, and then we've got a bolt here, and then another one down here. And as you can see, I've kind of loosened that one up a little bit already. But that's an 8mm as well. These are all three of these are 8mm. And if you've got a ratcheting box end wrench, like I said, that will come in handy to take those out. Trying to get in here and get on this and get my wrench onto this. It's kind of a challenge. Not much room to work in. So getting in here, and I'm going to take this one loose with 8mm socket. Let's see if I can get down and get it the rest of the way with my fingers. Nope, not going to happen. It's in there tight. So yeah, a lot of people probably wouldn't take that horn out of the way, but I could not get my hand down in there to even feel that bolt with the horn in there, so I did. Okay, that one's out. Set that aside. And now to the next one. And the next one, we're going to try to speed that one up. I think I can get my ratchet with an extension in there to it. Just like so. And that's out. My impact, I said ratchet a while ago, it's impact, but extension, that one's going to be a tough one to get back in place, but I think I can do it. Okay. Well, I have the impact with the 8mm on it. I'm going to go ahead and get that one. That one. And we're going to switch to the 10mm and get the other two. On this side, on the driver's side. And that's those. Okay, 2 more to go. And they're going to be the tough ones. So this is the wrench I'm using for this. If you don't have an 8mm, what I ended up having to use on this is it's a 5/16. It does fit on here well enough that I can break these loose and get them loosened up. And so, oops. Ratcheting mechanism's right there on the back of that wrench, so it kind of gets in the way sometimes. not a lot of room to work on this one. Okay, move to the top side now. Okay, sorry about the stoppage there on that. That was a bit of a struggle, but I did get that one out. So we're going to set it aside, and we're going to move on to the last one. And this one here is a bit more of a trick, because you do have a line right here in front of it. It kind of gets in the way. Let's see if I've got that one out far enough that I can get with my fingers now, if I can find it with my fingers. Here we go. There we go. Now we got it out. So got that one out. That one's a little easier to get than the other one. Okay, those are out of the way. So I think now we're at a point where we need to, I think I'm going to take and put a zip tie on these and secure them out of the way right quick, so that hold that up out of the way, and then we're almost ready to pull the radiator out. Need one more zip tie. This may not be necessary, but keeps it from putting undue stress on anything by just holding these in the original position. And zip ties are cheap. All right, okay, I think we're almost to a point where we're ready to pull the radiator out. I think, well, let's give it a try. Okay, so one of the things I just found out is there is a keeper clip right here underneath this line right here, and that clip has to come off, and you have to kind of pull these lines back for the radiator to come loose. That where it's screwed in, this kind of goes around it, and it has a cup on it that goes around that knob on the end of the radiator and holds those lines in place, so that will keep you from pulling the radiator out. So let's move back up top. Okay, so trying to get the radiator out. It's on some rubber tabs down here. Oh, I missed a screw. That's what the problem is. Okay. Now, let's see, it's right here. Let's see if I can get that screw out now. It's 8mm. Missed one of them. Hauled it out a while ago and then I missed it. It's the same on this side. Okay, so the last nut in here is kind of in a tight spot as well. It's right here. I'm having to kind of come in from the top after I tilted this radiator forward a little bit. Kind of lifted it up and tilted it forward. So I'm using a 10mm box end ratcheting box end. So loosen that up. Almost there. Alrighty. There we go. Come loose. Now we got that out. Now we're ready to remove the radiator. Okay, so should have in theory should have everything loose now. There's a shroud thing. Oops, we're gonna let it drain a little more liquid out of it. It's running down now that I've tilted the radiator some. Okay, right here on the side of the radiator, there's a Christmas tree wiring loom attachment, and you need to remember to get that out. As I started to pull the radiator, I figured out right quick that that was attached, and so now I think I'm at a point where I've got most everything attached, and it's kind of tight in here, so this is a tight thing. You've got to clear this up. You've got to clear the cooling lines and everything to get this out. So this is a little bit of a job. Okay, a little bit of wrestling here, and maybe we're on our way to getting this out. It's kind of a tight fit over here on this side with these transmission and air conditioning cooling lines over here. But there we go. I think, okay. Hung up on something else now. Okay. All right, now we got this out. And on that, here we go. Radiator is out. So here's the old radiator. I'm gonna set it aside. We got a few parts that we gotta get off the bit. So these rubber tabs here come off. We'll go on the new radiator. One on each side. That's where the mounting bolts go for the radiator. And then there's a rubber tab here that sits on the bottom mount. The mount goes in. Got two of those, one on each side. And that's it with the radiator. It's out. And right here's the Mishimoto radiator. This is the back side of it. I'm going to be putting these rubber grommets. We just took off the other radiator back onto this one. So that slides on there. And it does came with the upper two mounting point grommets on it. So that is everything on this, and I think we're almost ready to go back in. One thing they said to make sure to do is check the drain cock on this to make sure it's tight, and it seems to be tight. I'll get a wrench, see if I can tighten that, make sure it's snug. Okay, now we're putting the new radiator back in. We're gonna gently lower this into position, try to work our way into position. You see an extra set of hands in here. That's because sometimes you do need a little bit of help. Okay. This is a very, 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 very tight fit on this vehicle. So we've got to kind of work this in here. One side closer to in, and now this side here is going to be very tight getting in here. Just let that hang for a minute. Okay, now we're trying to get the radiator in. This is the cut number 4. A little bit of progress. And sometimes you got to just ask somebody with a smaller hand to come give you a hand, because when your fat hands can't fit in the hole, you got to get somebody with a smaller hand. Okay, after getting the radiator set in place, then the next challenge is to get all of the bolts in for the radiator. And so what I did was I took and put all the bolts in the front here in that hold the condenser and stuff in. So you've got the 2 bolts right here, the bolts here and here, and the one down here, and then the bolt here, the bolt here, the bolt here, and then one down here. And this is one that you need somebody with small hands. That's a tough one to get in. Okay, so now that I have those in, now it's time to grab the 2 bolts that hold the radiator in place, and we'll get those started right here. So after getting all of the bolts started on the front, then there's the 2 bolts that go on the radiator here. Getting those started and lined up. And then once we get all that done, then we'll get everything and we'll start beginning to tighten everything up. Okay, now that we got all the bolts tightened up on the radiator and the radiator in place, now we're going to take and we're going to put the radiator hoses back on. So I push this lower hose on in position, and now I'm going to put the clamp back on. So here we go with that. Get my pliers in position here to do this. I'll move this hose back in. I'm going to kind of look where it was lined up before, and I'm going to line it up back in that same spot on the hose. And now that lower hose is on, and let's move to the upper hose. I'm going to put the upper hose back on. So I'm going to slide it back into place. Kind of have to work it on a little bit. There's a little clamp here with this hose here, our wiring loom that goes into that. And now I'm going to take my pliers and adjust my pliers out. Squeeze that hose, that clamp in, and I'm going to kind of look for where it was at previously on the hose, and that's where I'm going to set it at, which is right about there. And the upper hose is on now. Now we're ready to move on to the fan. Now we're going to set the fan back in. I have to kind of work it in a little bit as we go down to get past this keeper on the right side, the passenger side. And then we're going to set this down in here. And there's 2 little clips down here at the bottom, or not clips, but arms on the radiator that this kind of sets into a track down there on each side. So once you get down into those tracks firmly, I'm going to put that in place. And then we're going to get 2 of the 10mm bolts that are provided with the radiator, that Mishimoto provided with the radiator. And we're going to start these bolts up right here. And then we'll move to the other side, put the one on the other side. And it will start up right here.
Yeah.
You may have to kind of wiggle the fan around a little bit to get this to line up. The first one's always the easiest one. Now we're going to tighten up these 2 10mm bolts. There's one. Come to this side. And oops. Yep, I'm going to have to go to a wrench on this one. But it's okay. We'll get it. Nope. Went the right direction. Now that you got the fan installed, let's hook up the electrical on it. So electrical's plugged in. Make sure it's all connections good on it. So push it in good. There you go. It is in. Now let's put in the overflow bottle. We work the overflow bottle in. There's 2 notches that this goes into. One at the bottom. Whoops. One at the top. Gotta kind of work this into position here. It's not the easiest fit. Okay, now that we got the coolant reservoir, overflow reservoir in, now we're going to put in the keeper clip for it, which is always a fun job. Okay, now we're putting the grill back in. It's going to be the reverse of the process that we did to take it out. We're going to get all of the, get it in here, get it lined up, then we're going to take and put the turn signal bulbs back in place that we took out earlier. Both sides. And now they're back in. Should check that one again. Slide in between there. Looks like it's going to go, maybe. Looks like it's good. Now we just kind of work the grill around as we get it in position. We'll get it, put it up, start popping it back into position. Each one as we go. Clips on top here after we get the grill popped into place. Make sure you got it all in nice and firm. And then those 6 clips go in. So took them out. They're in this position right here with the little tab pushed up. You pop it in the hole and then push down the tab. Some of them, you got to move the grill around a little bit to line it up. And then the last one here in the corner. Get over here where I can see it. Line it up, push it in, and it's in. The grill is back in. Okay, the next step is to put this cover back on. The shroud cover, and it slips in right here underneath the grill. And then we've got the 4 little Christmas tree retainers that just kind of pop in. We kind of work this along here, lining it up, popping those in. And there it is, it's in. And this line here's gonna keep it back up here. Now it's time to start filling with coolant into the system. And first thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna get a long screwdriver. Okay, there's a bleeder valve right here. When you start to fill your coolant, you'll need to open this valve here up. It's kind of hard to get to. If you got a long screwdriver, you can kind of reach down behind the throttle body and work your way into it and open it up. But you want to open that up and start filling coolant until it starts to bubble water out. Okay, we're going to put the air cleaner back in. Going to line up as we put it in. We're going to fill and line up the rubber grommets in the bottom, and we're going to set that in there, kind of push that box down in there until it seats. And that should do it right there. Okay, now we're going to put in the air tube. All right, finished up now. We got the air breather back on. We got the cover back on the engine. Filled it with antifreeze, bled the system, bled it all out. All right.
That's going to wrap it up here for our review and install of the Mishimoto V2 Performance Aluminum Radiator fitting 2007 to 2018 JK Wranglers. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, for all things Jeep, be sure to keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.